In this tutorial, you will use the elimination method to solve a system of equations algebraically. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to say that you can solve a system of equations algebraically by using the specific elimination method. And in order to be successful, you have to do these three things. You have to make sure that your equations are written in the same order. You will choose addition or subtraction to combine your equations, and in doing so, you will eliminate one variable, creating a system which will now be solvable. Let's get started. Here's a system that contains the variables x and y. But like we studied previously in the substitution method, isolating one of these variables is going to be a lot of work. So there's another technique that you can use to combine these two sentences together into a new third sentence. But instead of substituting, we're simply going to combine the terms by using a technique you're familiar with from grade school, and that is we're simply going to add all of the like terms together. Now you notice that my equations currently are vertically aligned, or one is on the top and one is on the bottom. And if you look at the specific order of the terms, you'll notice that there are some similarities. The x term is first here, and the x term is first there. The y terms are second, the constants are last. So because all of my like terms are in the same order, and my equal signs are in the same order, I can literally add these two equations together. And when I do that by combining like terms, 7x take away 7x gives me 0 x's. So I don't even need to write it because there are none of them. This is an elimination. These two values are what we call additive inverses. When you add two things together and the result is 0, those are additive inverses. So by having additive inverses, I eliminate an entire variable. I can now use all of my same techniques from before to combine the rest of these terms. Negative 4y plus 10y is 6y, and negative 11 and negative 25 make negative 36. I have one variable, and now I can solve for that variable. I'm going to take these items, I'm going to shrink them down so I have some room to do the second part of my work. Now remember, a system has two variables, therefore it has two answers. And I only found one answer, and that was y. So I'm going to take that y value and I'm going to substitute it into one of the original equations. I'm going to choose the top sentence, and it doesn't matter which sentence I use. But remember, a substitute is a value that you replace after you've erased. So this is a substitute right here. This is a substitute for y. Erase the y, replace it with the substitute. Compute. Use your inverse operations and your properties of equality here to isolate your second variable. And now we're done. Pause the video, take a good long look at this. Alright, we're going to take a look at another question now. Okay, you ready? Do you remember the technique that we used? Step 1, make sure all of your like variables and equal signs and constants are lined up. Right? They are written in the same order. Step 2, add your equations together. In doing so, you should create an elimination. If you don't have an inverse, you're not going to get an elimination. You now have a single variable solve for that variable, then take that value, -7, and use it as your substitute. You can use either sentence. This time I'm going to choose the second one. X plus 2y is equal to -5. Remember, your substitute can only go in if you erase a value. So the value I'm going to erase here is x. So erase and replace. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides, giving me 2y is equal to 2. Divide both sides by 2. And there's my second answer. Pause the video if you need to take another look. It's time for one last try. How about you give this one a go without me? Pause the video and see if you can get the solution on your own. Alright, did you pause that video? Let's take a look. If you add these two sentences together, you do eliminate the letter y. Now you can, if you want, write this 1, or you can leave it invisible. I'm going to leave it invisible because there's no need for me to write it. Okay, here, 25, -25, and 18 is -7. So this is my replacement value. I think I'm going to substitute it into the first sentence, and I'm choosing that because it just has less negative signs. And don't forget, it is a replacement for this letter. So 5x plus 2y equals -25 is the sentence I chose. I'm going to erase and replace. Notice I use parentheses, and that's helpful here. It will remind me that I'm multiplying. So -35 plus 2y equals -25. Add 35 to both sides. Sorry, my handwriting is so messy, but my stylus isn't working, so I have to use my finger. Alright, divide by 2, and there is my second answer. Alright, so that's the main idea of solving using the elimination method. Now it does get harder from here, but this is how the technique works. So let's take a look at this next question. If I were to add these two sentences together, do you notice that nobody eliminates? Nobody eliminates. So using the addition operation here is not very helpful. I need one of these letters, one of these variables, to be an additive inverse, right? I need it to eliminate. Now, if I look back on my last problem, my additive inverses, or the problem before that, my additive inverses, or the problem before that, my additive inverses, all had matching coefficients, right? 7 and 7, 2 and 2. This one also had 2 and 2. But notice something else. One of them has to be positive, and one of them has to be negative. So when I go back to this problem, which is slightly different than the first one that we did, I don't have opposite signs. I wish there was a negative here, but there isn't. The good news is, you can put one there, as long as you're fair, right? The rule is, if you're going to make it negative, everybody has to have an opposite sign change. If everybody has a sign change, that's subtraction. So I'm not going to do anything to my first sentence at all. I'm going to leave this exactly the same. But what I am going to do is distribute this negative sign to all three of my terms. So my first sentence will remain the same, 7x minus 4y equals -11. But my second sentence will become -7x positive 10y, and negative 25. In doing that, I create the additive inverse that I need right there. I can combine the rest of these and solve for my variable just like I did earlier. So back when I showed you the learning targets at the beginning of the lesson, here, you'll notice now what this second check mark is about. Add or subtract to combine the equations. So for the first few, we had an elimination. Right? For the second one, we added and we got an elimination. And for the third one, we added and we got an elimination. But for the fourth one, we had to subtract. So I'm not going to solve this entire problem because I already did with the first example, because once I altered it, it was the same. So why don't we start with a brand new question. Are they written in the same order? Are all of your variables and solutions lined up? Yes. Step 2, check whether you should add or whether you should subtract. If I add, nobody would eliminate. See these? They don't eliminate, they make a negative 4. But if I subtract or rewrite my values, I would get an elimination. So let's shrink this down a bit. And remember, I'm not doing anything to my first sentence. I'm going to keep this the same. But what I'm doing to my second sentence is distributing that negative. So I'm going to get a plus 1x, a plus 2y, perfect, and a minus 5. See how everybody switched signs? Now I can add them together or combine. There's my elimination. There's my solution. And now I just need to substitute it back in to any of these sentences, the first, the second, or even the new one that I made up, the third one. I think the third one would be nice. The third one's nice because it doesn't have as many negative signs in it. So don't forget you have to erase and replace. So erase and replace. I'm going to add 7 to both sides. And there's my 2 answers. Alright, I think you're ready to give this one a try on your own. Go ahead and pause the video and see how you do. Okay, let's see how you did. Alright, that concludes our lesson on how to solve a system of equations algebraically using the elimination method.